Hey, what's up everyone? Today I've got a super informative video for all the Range Rover L460 owners out there looking to elevate their SUV's luxury factor. It's a step-by-step guide on installing deployable running boards on the 2022 and newer Range Rover L460. Let's get started. As mentioned in the intro, here's our patient, the Range Rover L460. And here's everything that comes in the kit, including the module, hardware, and all necessary components. First, I recommend connecting the vehicle to a charger to prevent the battery from draining during the installation. Next, remove the undercar cover from the vehicle. I didn't record every step of removing the bolts, but it's straightforward. Just follow the perimeter of the car and remove all the hardware that is in your way. Keep in mind that the splash guard has a spacer behind the bolt, so be careful when removing it. Behind the splash guard is a small plastic reinforcement piece. Remove the plastic clip holding it in place and pull out the reinforcement. It might take some effort, but it's manageable. With the undercar cover removed, start removing the plastic clip securing the vehicle's lower trim. This is necessary for installing the additional jacking points, which I will show and explain later in the video. Pull the lower trim toward you to release the small clips holding it to the body. Some of these clips may break, but don't worry, we'll replace them later. Replacement clips are inexpensive and fit perfectly, as I'll show toward the end of the video. Once the trim is removed, inspect the undercar cover. You'll notice the factory marked trimming lines. However, we will need to make a slight adjustment and preserve the section with the metal retainer, as indicated by the red arrow. I'll explain the reason for this later. The deployable running board kit includes additional jacking points because the factory jacking points become inaccessible once the running boards are installed. These new jacking points align perfectly with the vehicle's body and are designed to be integrated into the vehicle's structure. Please note that the front and the rear jacking points have different designs. Make sure to compare them with the factory jacking points before installation to ensure you are installing the correct one. Install the front jacking point using the provided hardware, ensuring everything fits snugly. Tighten it fully as no adjustments are needed after installation. For trimming the undercar cover, I used the Ryobi multi-tool, which I found to be extremely useful for this type of application. It offers excellent maneuverability in tight spaces like this and delivers precise cuts. Once you've completed the previous step, remove two 13mm bolts that were installed at the factory. These bolts are no longer needed for our installation, as we will be replacing them with the hardware provided with the running boards. Next, I'm installing the front bracket for the running boards. Notice that I'm using the same holes from which I just removed the 13mm bolts. The hardware provided with the running boards is being used here. The two front bolts are 13mm while the rear bolt is slightly larger at 14mm. At this stage, do not tighten everything completely. Keep the bracket loose for now, as it will help with adjustment during the rest of the installation process. I'm also showing here how the bracket covers the jacking point. This is why additional jacking points are included by the running board manufacturer, which is a nice touch. Now, as you can see, I'm cutting the rear section of their undercar cover. However, instead of following the factory trimming line, I'm making a slight modification to ensure that the metal retainer remains attached to the undercar cover. Next, we need to remove the factory connector for the running board. This connector is attached to a holder. It's great that the Range Rover includes this wiring even on the vehicles without running boards, as it saves a lot of time during the installation. As you can see, I've removed the holder for the connector because a plastic retainer for it occupies the threaded hole which is required to secure the new jacking point. The rear jacking point uses 3 bolts like the front one. However, for the rear, there is an additional small L-shaped bracket where the running board connector will be attached. Here you can see the new jacking point installed right next to the old one, along with the bracket where the connector will be attached. Alright, now it's time to install the rear bracket for the running board. The rear bolt for the bracket isn't accessible yet, so for now install only the front 2 bolts. Just like with the front bracket, do not tighten these bolts all the way. Leave some place so you can adjust the bracket as needed during the installation process. Next, route the cable, ensuring it runs alongside the hardware in a way that prevents it from getting pinched when the running board is deployed. Now I'm using the new L-shaped bracket from the kit to secure the wiring. At this point, repeat the same steps on the opposite side of the vehicle, whether you started on the left or right. Make sure that both sides are completed to the same stage. Once both sides are ready, connect the wiring harness to the motor. After this, with both sides at this condition, you're ready to move on to the next stage of installation. Next, we need to install the module which is located in the trunk. Note, for the vehicles with a spare tire, the connectors for the module will be in the location I'm showing in the video. However, for the vehicles without a spare tire, the connector's location is different. If you are working on a vehicle without a spare tire and having trouble finding the connectors, leave a comment and I'll help you find them. Moving on, fold down the left side of the rear seats and remove the 2 carpet clips. Underneath the carpet you'll find 2 connectors. In this case, these connectors are attached to the holders. Simply unplug them from the holders and connect wiring harness included in the kit. Then attach the module to the harness. This step is pretty straightforward and self-explanatory. There is not much room for error since all connectors are designed to fit only their designated ports, so you can't accidentally mix them up. Once the module is connected, test the system to ensure everything is working properly. Try deploying the brackets a couple of times to confirm that they function as expected. After confirming everything is working, leave the door open for now. The bracket needs to stay in deployed position for the next steps. Now it's time to align the small bracket on the running board with the brackets on the vehicle. Start by attaching one bolt to the rear bracket, but don't tighten it fully yet, just enough to hold the running board in place. Once the rear bracket is loosely secure, move to the front. Align everything properly and tighten the two 5mm Allen bolts completely. I found this is to be the easiest way to secure the running boards to the bracket. At this point, if the front bracket feels loose, don't worry. That's normal since the rear bracket is not fully tightened yet. Once the rear bracket is secure, the running board will become firm and have no play. When the rear bracket is deployed, it's time to add the third bolt, which was previously inaccessible. This is where the third bolt goes onto the bracket. Here's a close-up view for reference. At this stage, test the running board to ensure everything works correctly, make sure nothing is rubbing or obstructing its movement, and confirm that both doors can operate in the running board as intended. Once the testing is completed and everything works fine, leave one door slightly open and proceed to tighten all 6 bolts on the brackets that attach to the frame. With this step, the installation is completed. Repeat the same process on the opposite side of the vehicle. Here I'm performing a small test. I weighed 190 pounds and as you can see, the running board is very firm and no longer has any play. As promised earlier in the video, here are the plastic clips which are exact replicas of the original Range Rover clips. They fit just as snugly as the factory ones, but costs only a fraction of price Range Rover charges. As you can see, I've replaced all the broken clips and proceed to install lower body trim by aligning the plastic clips with the body of the vehicle, then push the trim firmly to lock the clips in place. Note, begin by installing the front lower body trim first, followed by the rear trim that fits above the wheel arch. It's time to trim the splash guard reinforcement piece. For this step I follow the trimming line provided by Range Rover. I'm using my Ryobi multi-tool again, which has become one of my favorite tools for tasks like this. Once the trimming is complete, reinstall the reinforcement back to its original location. Due to the running board bracket, this step might be a little challenging, but it's definitely manageable. After this, it's time to reinstall all the plastic retainers and tighten all the bolts securing the undercar cover. This is where the small metal retainer I mentioned earlier comes into play. It allows me to reposition the splash guard back to its original spot, effectively protecting the motor from the elements. I'm not sure why Range Rover didn't consider this design adjustment, but this is how I completed the installation. Okay, at this point it's time to reveal the Range Rover logo. Test the running boards one final time to ensure everything is working properly. And here is the jacking point. As you can see, the factory jacking point is no longer accessible because it's covered by the running board bracket. However, the new aftermarket jacking point is fully exposed, making it easy to place a jack under the vehicle and lift it as needed. Before calling the project complete, I'm double checking to ensure there are no errors on the dashboard while the car is running. And as expected, there are no error messages. The car recognizes deployable running boards as if they were factory installed. Everything works perfectly, no warnings, no errors on any screen. Here's the final result. I hope this video was helpful. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching.